2025 wasn't just a big year for Pokemon cards, it was literally the year that fundamentally changed Pokemon cards forever. New price ceilings were made, real bad product scarcity. This year literally had it all, and that's why in this video I want to go over and do a wrap up of 2025, go over the highlights of the year, and look at what actually made 2025 so special for Pokemon cards in general. And I mean, I think a good way is to look at the best cards released within 2025, and then some major things that happened, and also go over some of my personal favorites as well. Now, if we haven't met before, I just wanted to say welcome to the channel. My name's Phil and I run this Pokemon investing channel. The channel's really had some big growth in 2025, and of course that wouldn't be possible without all of the amazing viewers on the channel, so I really appreciate you tuning in and watching. So if you are into Pokemon cards and you want a real easy way to keep up with prices and all what's happening in the market, definitely feel free to subscribe to the channel as an easy way to do that. Though in terms of 2025's highlight reel, there's a lot to choose from, and I suppose I could go over each set, but I think I'm going to showcase the biggest moments of this year, and you'll actually see for yourself why this was such a big transformation for Pokemon and Pokemon cards in general. So let's get into it. All right, so right here, I've got a lot of the highlights in front of me of what happened throughout 2025. There was massive moments in 2025. There was moments where some kind of people thought that Pokemon cards would begin dropping a little bit in price. As I go over what happened this year, it was a massive year. This was the biggest year in Pokemon cards history, and it's actually kind of crazy to think because since Prismatic Evolutions released, product availability wasn't available for any set in 2025. The only set that had any availability was Journey Together booster packs. Literally, other than that, if you wanted a sealed Destined Rivals booster box, if you wanted even a sealed Journey Together enhanced booster box, you were paying above retail price, and that was unheard of, okay? There was maybe like before, you know, in 2021 with Celebrations, that was a set that sold out. But other than that, most sets you could get are released. This was a complete game changer. So in terms of 2025, the big highlight reel, which actually released in January, was Prismatic Evolutions. This was a huge shift for Pokemon. A lot of people love this set. A lot of people really took a liking to Prismatic Evolutions. The big reason for this was that it had every single evolution as a special illustration rare. Now, the big highlight of Prismatic Evolutions for 2025, and ironically it did release, you know, in the first month of January, was the Umbreon special illustration rare. Amazing artwork, really cool, and this was a highlight of 2025 and one of the biggest pretty much straight away. I mean, this came out immediately to start the year off. Though as you can see here, I'm just on the TCG player charts. This was the most expensive card, and still we didn't really get a card that matched this price point throughout 2025. So it's funny that it kind of released because you can see here, sold for $1,600 in February of 2025. Now it did have a big drop after that, but that was the most expensive Pokemon card for the English TCG to release within 2025. There were other kind of things with simplified Chinese cards that did get higher prices than this, and I'll speak a little bit more about those in a moment, but this was a highlight for the year. Umbreon Prismatic Evolutions released, and the reason why it got this price point was much to do with because of Moonbreon. So Moonbreon came out in Evolving Skies in 2021, and this was, everyone just kind of waited for the next Umbreon that was going to be a special illustration rare, and of course the price points for this were massive, and a lot of people were big fans of it as well, and I do think that this was a major shift for Pokemon, and honestly, Prismatic Evolutions set the whole trajectory of 2025. If it wasn't for that set and all the crazy product availability and everything that happened, I think 2025 would have been a different story. But because Prismatic Evolutions pulled all those people in, that's kind of what set the tone for the rest of the year. Though also, I think the special illustration rares within Prismatic Evolutions were all incredible. When you look at all the special illustration rares, especially for the evolutions, they're phenomenal artworks. One of my personal favorites is the Sylveon. Really love that artwork. I think it did really well. And one that I didn't like, if I had to say my least favorite, is probably the Jolteon SIR. But you know, you had more. You also had the Iron Hand special illustration rare. You had the Raging Bolt. There was so many incredible artworks, and Prismatic Evolutions as a whole is definitely a highlight of 2025, and it will go down as one of the best Pokemon sets ever to be released. Where it kind of ranks in a top 10 list, I'm very interested to know your thoughts, where you would kind of put Prismatic Evolutions in a top 10 Pokemon sets of all time. I know for a lot of collectors, they would put it in their top 10 sets of all time. And, you know, fair point if they do, because it was a real big standout kind of set for this year. Now, also, while speaking about these cards, if you do love purchasing Pokemon cards, sealed products, and slabs, then that does bring me to today's video sponsor, Misprint. So if you've never heard of Misprint, well, they are a US-based marketplace that is entirely focused on community-driven prices. Because Misprint is entirely listed by the community, you avoid inflated markups and you actually pay the current market's worth with product. Misprint has a huge variety of singles, sealed products, and slabs to choose from, and what makes Misprint such a unique platform is that it has a very one-of-a-kind buy now and sell now system. So how this works, as a buyer, you can actually set the price you're willing to pay for any Pokemon product. If the item ever gets that level, the deal happens automatically. Now, as a seller, you can actually sell a product immediately if there's a preset offer, and this makes your Pokemon collection have immediate liquidity, which is a huge game changer. Now, if you do download the Misprint app, it becomes a very handy tool, especially at card shows. With the Misprint app, you can use your phone's camera to scan multiple PSA slabs in one photo, and it will show you the current prices of all those slabs. Now, if you are a first timer and you just want to give Misprint a try, feel free to use my referral code to get $5 off your first purchase. A huge thanks to Misprint for supporting the channel. Now let's get back into the video. Now also, 2025 also had some pretty crazy price swings, and especially with the Bubble Mew. So I've got the Bubble Mew right here, and I'm on the year graph of TCG Player, and you can see in that snapshot there just how crazy the Bubble Mew had a journey. Bubble Mew fell down to $292 US, and then it went up all the way to pretty much $700. Once Bubble Mew hit $700, especially in previous videos, you can actually go through them. I did say, hey, I think this is a little bit overinflated at the moment, but it was a big moment of 2025 when Bubble Mew hit this price point, because really it was just out of nowhere. Like, no one expected that Bubble Mew would get this price point, though it has reversed and it's currently selling for $496. Pretty much, not exactly there, but kind of approaching the price at the start of the year, and that is some market volatility. So 2025 had the Bubble Mew also spike to crazy new heights, and it pretty much, even though it was a card from 2024, I think Bubble Mew really had its moment in 2025 with how many collectors wanted it. Now, another big moment of 2025 was the introduction or the reintroduction of trainer Pokemon cards, and Journey Together released this, and Journey Together also released box toppers as well, which haven't been seen for many, many years. If you aren't aware of this, box toppers, how it goes, you can buy a Journey Together enhanced booster box, and on top of the booster box, there actually is a special promo card, which was Ends Reshiram with a Journey Together stamp on the card. This was a big moment, this was a big shift, and also because Pokemon was so hyped, this also brought a lot of people like back into the hobby, because they're like, wait, trainer Pokemon are coming back? Well, box toppers are coming back? Oh, I want to check this set out. Now, in hindsight, Journey Together, in terms of when it released, it was probably the weakest set in terms of the collector market for 2025. In terms of Journey Together, I actually think it's an amazing set. I've really grown to love it, but in terms of that mainstream market, in 2025, it was probably the weakest set for a mainstream audience. I actually really do like Journey Together. I think it had amazing highlights, and of course, because it did reintroduce trainer Pokemon, that was a massive moment for 2025, and people were really excited from here. Though then Destined Rivals hit the scene. Now, this was a huge moment because this is a Team Rocket throwback. Now, this is probably another massive highlight for 2025, Destined Rivals as a whole, because Team Rocket cards haven't been seen for 20 years at this point. Now, the first moment we ever heard of this Team Rocket set, it was kind of rumored back in January and February of 2024. So you can imagine how much hype built for it. A lot of people wanted it. I do think now that I'm looking back at it, it's kind of interesting that a Team Rocket set released in Generation 9. The Scarlet and Violet era had some weird moments because you had Pokemon 151, which came out in 2023, and that was all about Pokemon 151 in a Generation 9 set. Bit strange, and same with Team Rocket cards. Even though there's a few cool cards in here, it's kind of weird to have a Team Rocket set in Generation 9 when Generation 9 has nothing to do with Team Rocket. So the TCG does break the rules a little bit in that kind of way. In terms of this, the main chase card that people wanted from this set was the Team Rocket's Mewtwo, and Destined Rivals as a sealed product brought a lot of people back into the hobby, and also people wanted the sealed product. Destined Rivals, I think, interestingly, now looking back, I think the sealed product is more desired than what you can really pull from the set. It had Evolving Skies energy without the Moonbryon, and that was really interesting because I think the reward from Destined Rivals is the Team Rocket's Mewtwo. I think it's a fantastic card, but in terms of the price point for how expensive Destined Rivals sealed product is and how hard it is to pull, it was a bit of a misalignment there. Though in terms of how big of a set this was a massive moment for Pokemon, and this is what brought so many people in. Destined Rivals brought so many fans back. The nostalgia bait was there. It drew so many fans back into the TCG, but of course, there was incredible special illustration rares here, and it was a massive highlight for Pokemon. Now, interestingly, simplified Chinese Pokemon cards were also a big moment in 2025, and there was a big hype wave around them, pretty much around like somewhat in the middle of the year, around that kind of July to September period. A lot of people started collecting simplified Chinese Pokemon cards, and also there was a simplified Chinese Gengar card, which got insane price points. It became one of the most expensive Pokemon cards to release ever, and there was a lot of hype and momentum there. And there also was a very unique promotional Mew card with only 1,510 copies released in the world. But simplified Chinese Pokemon cards also did something very unique, as they introduced card artworks that have never been seen in the English TCG. They actually have simplified Chinese exclusive artworks, which is a massive deal. Whether or not we're ever going to get these in the English TCG is anyone's guess, though this was also a big moment in Pokemon, because this was like, usually maybe Japanese Pokemon cards used to get exclusive artworks, but they would always be released in the English TCG eventually. These simplified Chinese Pokemon cards have not. That's also a big moment in 2025 because these exclusive artworks do exist. Now, another big highlight of 2025 was the first time ever in history that the English Pokemon TCG got split sets with different cards inside. So previously we've had split sets, like for example, Temporal Forces, there's 2 different ETB box arts you can get, but in terms of the booster packs, they were identical. Here we had Black Bolt, White Flare. Now this was very interesting because White Flare had a completely different roster of Pokemon cards you could get versus Black Bolt, and this was the first time this ever happened in the English TCG, and this brought a lot of fans in. Now this was also a massive moment because every single Unova Pokemon got an illustration rare or a special illustration rare, and this was just unheard of, right? No one was expecting that this would happen, and it was a massive highlight, and these are actually my favorite sets from the Scarlet and Violet era, and there was so much hype around these. And of course we also did get the Seismitoad, which Shinji Kanda illustrated, and of course the amount of people that love his artworks are massive, and Shinji Kanda became even more popular in 2025, and there were just hype trains. So many things happened. I think the Seismitoad was a big moment of 2025, especially with all the kind of controversy around the artwork and people hyping a Pokemon that really isn't that popular as well. This was the first time within pretty much Pokemon's history that a Pokemon that wasn't, Pikachu, Charizard, Lugia, it wasn't a massive famous Pokemon, became one of the most expensive cards in the Scarlet and Violet era. Very iconic for 2025. And of course, Black Bolt, White Flare have become very iconic sets as well. A lot of people love it. Now, a big shift that happened that no one really expected was that after Black Bolt, White Flare, the Scarlet and Violet era actually closed its doors. This was to introduce Legends ZA. Now, Legends ZA was a very popular video game of where Mega Evolution Pokemon got released, and also what happened here was even though Legends ZA got released and all Mega Evolutions came back and there was a lot of hype here, now we entered a new Mega Evolution era. Now, this was a massive moment for Pokemon because Mega Evolution for most Pokemon fans are their favorite mechanic. The fact that it was coming back in a video game and the fact that there was going to be a new Mega Evolution era was super crazy, and there was also these new Mega Gold Hyper Rare cards as well. Crazy kind of shift for Pokemon. Though here with the Mega Evolution era was really interesting because here when it kind of released, everyone expected, Mega Evolution's going to be the biggest things ever. But as time's gone on, very interestingly, collectors haven't responded that positively to the Mega Evolution era as a lot of people expected. In fact, Mega Evolution Enhanced Booster Box was probably where the Pokemon hype started fading a little bit. So with this release, and this is actually very common, when a new era rolls around, the hype does tend to fade a little bit, though a lot of those fans of Scarlet and Violet era didn't really transition that easily to the Mega Evolution era. And then, there was going to be a lot of hype for Phantasmal Flames. Phantasmal Flames did release arguably one of the greatest Pokemon artworks of all time with the Charizard Special Illustration Rare. Though what was really crazy about all of this, and there was so much hype around this, so much people wanted Phantasmal Flames, it was like a new Mega Evolution era, the Charizard has dropped a lot in price, and it is a highlight of 2025, though what people expected of Mega Evolution and, the Charizard set has definitely calmed down. And 2025 as a whole has had a massive era of growth. What's so crazy is we entered 2025, Prismatic Evolution started this hype wave. There was so much hype around it, it kind of set 2025 up on its path, though Phantasmal Flames has also calmed a little bit of that hype down. While it is hard to get, it is going to be very interesting to see what happens as the years continue, because I think 2026 we do have Ascended Heroes going to release. There's going to be a lot of hype there, but I do imagine that there will come a point where things start calming down in 2026, because 2025 was one of the greatest years for Pokemon cards, but can it continue in 2026? It is anyone's guess. Honestly, I think 2026 will be a good year for Pokemon cards, but I don't think it will be as hyped as it was in 2025. Though I think navigating the current market is a big task because of how wild the prices can be. Though if you are interested in the best way to do that, I do actually cover that in this video on screen here. Within this video on screen, I go over how to collect in today's crazy market. If you enjoyed this video, then click the video that's appearing on screen. Appreciate you watching, and I will see you on the next video.